Hello, everybody. Welcome to the LJL officially unofficial broadcast, bringing you the LJL coverage of the 2021 Spring Split. Must one here, joined by Initialize. Initialize, welcome to the stream. We're covering a tiebreaker match.
We absolutely are. Regular season is pretty much done, aside from this one game here between V3 Esports and Sengoku Gaming. And buddy, I feel like both of these teams have been on like completely opposite trajectories.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a really good place to start because V3 Esports, they came in, the former world competitors. They
Sure.
didn't have the great showing, but at least even they started off with a bang. Week one could have gone better, but it started off good and they were on a winning trajectory. By week three, they were near the top of the standings. Sengoku were on the other foot, however, by that
Yes.
point.
Yeah, they took a little while to get online, but I think it was one of those things where it took us a while to realize they were kind of there. We were a little bit hesitant to judge when they were online, and then by the end of the split, went, yeah, they've got like 6-2 in their last 8 matches, and one of those losses was to DFM, and that was a really fun, aggressive, and competitive match. So that's like what 6.5, if you know what I mean.
Yeah,
With one of those losses being a really competitive one against the best team in the league right now, at least regular season stats wise. So that's fantastic for them. It's just, I don't know, V3 Esports, the other end of the scale. What are they going, like 2-4, I believe, in their last 6?
it was 2 and 4, and we know that within that Super Week is included, and it's like Super Week was pretty rough to watch for V3 Esports. I mean, week 7 losing to Burning Core to end it.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, the fact that this tiebreaker match is actually going to end it, and you have to hope for V3's sake that the game looks convincing from their side because they haven't had a convincing win in really a while.
At least against someone similar to them in the standings, which is kind of what worries us here on the LJLOU
Yeah.
broadcast, right? We have got this issue with like, actually V3 got what it takes to take down some of these better teams. Like sometimes they can just end up either getting outdrafted or kind of caught off guard in the macro game when they're so good against lower teams. Other teams just step up and fight them around wards, and they suddenly end up in a lot of trouble. And I think people like Crash, like NT, might do exactly that to V3, which is why I'm a little interested to see how V3 perform here.
I think that jungle support duo is a perfect one to go on to because we've been noticing that slowly and very recently over the last few weeks that Muujin and Reiner haven't quite had the poetry in motion that Boogie and Reiner had throughout 2020. And Crash and Anti have actually started to really
Mm.
understand and learn where their synergies work. They're really working well together around Baron's objectives, and I think a really good one to think about in comparison to the Hawks, a team that one of these teams will be playing after this match. Vision as well, and that's something that has been kind of haunting some of these LJL teams in
Mm.
in the recent few weeks.
Yeah, I know we've been, or at least particularly me, I've been lambasting the Hawks for their poor vision control around objectives, and 4v3, they've got great ideas around vision, and then it'll like drop for half a second and someone gets punished. Again, it was this one
Yeah.
particular moment we kind of call out as slightly emblematic of it was this one time when Cog had some great deep wards in the enemy jungle that time out and allow a route in for in fact, I think it was Crash to come in and punish up in that top side and put him in the dirt. It might have been Steel now. I forget the matchup. Either way, it was very notable. And poor guy ends up 0-5-0 because the vision control slips and they can't seem to get it back. And part of that, I think, for me as well, is that Hollow and Reiner have been struggling a little bit more of late in lane. Reiner's been caught under tower a little bit more against more aggressive bot lanes, and that's hurt them.
It has. I wonder, and I don't know where you think on this one. It just popped into my head. Where do you think, or how do you think this game's going to be played? Is this going to be an absolute bloodbath, or is this going to be kind of one of those super controlling Sengoku games from Super Week?
I think Sengoku would like it to be like one of those super controlling Sengoku games where basically they say, yeah, we're just too strong, you don't want to fight us, and then they just have low kill games because nobody ever feels strong enough to fight them. But I think for V3's side, they will be hoping to kind of return the favor and basically say, we just play the map better or want to play the map better. And if they can get a draft that potentially enables Cog and allows Reiner to get out on the map and support Mugen, who has largely been a pretty good jungler, honestly, for the split. There we go. That's the word I was looking for. Half a second there. But, you know, I know, say, the official stream for this tiebreaker match was highlighting Crash versus Mugen. And I think, obviously, we've gone for the jungle support duos, and I completely agree with that. But half of that duo is the junglers. And Mugen's been good, but I think Crash has been perhaps just a little bit more aggressive in that mid game, which I think has been a little bit lower on Mugen's priority list.
Yeah, Mugen's came in very quick, very hot, and then has slightly fallen off over the last few weeks. His presence just isn't what I was expecting it, and it kind of fell all over the place. Initialize, I think it's about time that we get our predictions made clear just before we go into this one. We did record our podcast earlier, so we've got a good idea on where we're both leaning. I will be going for Sengoku Gaming. What about yourself, Initialize?
I will concur with you. I agree. I think it's Sengoku Gaming.
Is it even close for you, or is it just through recent performances, these two teams, just you don't see them matching up? Or we go far in more depth on our podcast, so check that out.
I think a lot of the current performance has me very worried for V3. That said, I know V3 can be better than this, and I expect they will be come playoffs. Fingers crossed. But for this tiebreaker match right now, I give Sengoku a fairly serious edge.
All right, well, that's with it all said and done. But now it's actually time for us to get into games. So let's go over to pick and ban phase.
As it is, and that will indeed be pick and bans. You can see it will be V3 on the blue side, Sengoku on the red. And V3 have got themselves Cog, Mugen, Ace, Hollow, and Reiner rounding out their roster.
And for the side of Sengoku Gaming, we've got Paz, Crash, Ramune, Gango, and NT, and a Nocturne ban to be taken off first.
Indeed, it is. You can see all of those bans that have come through. Nocturne is a very specific ban versus the likes of Mugen and, of course, Ace, who's played that in the mid lane. Just look back to the likes of Spring last year. You'll know that this guy has played that champion in the mid lane, because why wouldn't you? But the Udyr ban as well is, again, just looking to take off some of these playmaking agency picks from Mugen, who has been given a lot of priority in these drafts as of late, hasn't he, Lexi? I'm looking back to Nunu's and Kindred's as counter picks that haven't worked out, but I've at least appreciated the look in.
It's really put me in a weird spot where I kind of watch it happen. I'm like, well, I guess let's see how this goes. Rel and Thresh are the last two bans for the teams respectively, and another Seraphine ban. We're never going to see many of these teams at the moment in the LJL. It seems like everybody learnt to play her, and now no one will get to play her because she is just so oppressive at the moment in the metagame. Renekton is the first one picked up, and that's a flex one. That can go for Cog, that can go for Ace. That's not normal in the LJL. Only V3 can do this.
That's exactly it. I'm somewhat interested to see how it all works out. Of course, you know, they don't want to give that away. Paz has gone towards Anar, as we kind of mentioned. It's gone with an Olaf, which, yes, we've talked about it loads. Olaf is nerfed on this patch, but that doesn't mean he's not good, because Stridebreaker is still a thing.
It's Paz is in a really interesting spot in this game, because we've seen him go against Cog, and we've seen how this match has been working out. It's normally been very competitive between these two top laners. Yeah, ooh, okay, though. Olaf got matched by Nidalee. There were a few other junglers still open, specifically Lilia. I was expecting to be picked up by Mugen, but hey, they're going for the Nidalee. It'll be interesting to see if they go for the Moonstone or if they go for something a little bit different. But Tristana coming up for Hollow super early on in this draft. That's a new one. And then Isaiah for Gango.
And of course, you know, we say it's for Hollow, but there is still a world where, of course, we've seen it in mid lane in particular. I mean, like, obviously, Perks over in the LCS, for example, has played that way. So it doesn't necessarily speak to me of being part of Ace's champion pool, but Maybe that's what they think about. Of course, as you said, the response from Sengoku is Xayah, who has been rising in priority as of late. I know Nymera has been on the Xayah hype train for ages. He's talked to both of us incessantly, frankly, about how good he thinks his champion can be. So Sengoku will be feeling very happy to get Gango on that champion. We are, however, on to the second phase of bans, and Sengoku are looking to take out some of those engaged supports to stop the all-in potential of Tristana, whereas V3 are thinking of it potentially in attacking Ramene's champion pool. I wonder whether we might see a last ban Syndra here to get him off that champion he's been going back to so often.
Yeah, we definitely talk about that champion, and it's a problem if they do get that, because it has really allowed Ramune to actually have more of a presence within the team, and that has definitely been something from Sengoku in the earlier weeks. We noticed Ramune kind of wasn't particularly impactful. The set ban that we see coming out is again another flex ban between Ace and Reiner, depending on the direction that they want to play this. And interesting.
I mean, the Rakan means it's taken
Why
away
would you
from
do
Xayah
that?
Rakan, so you don't get the Xayah
guess.
Rakan duo, and Enti is historically a relatively good Rakan. Plus, I suppose Charm just is really irritating into Tristana, because I'm not sure how easy it is to buffer your way out of the Charm. Either way, Leona's the response, so it's still a very hard engaged champion. She's fallen a little way down the tier list as of late, because Rel has just been kind of doing her job better. But of course, Rel's on the ban list, and V3 just locked in Varus Tom Kench. What? Okay, so that is looking like potentially a mid lane Tristana, unless V3 pull a weak one and flex the Renekton mid and move the Tristana top and pull a Shy option. But I'm feeling Tristana mid and Varus bot, probably? That's crazy, Lexi.
Hollow, I get a feeling when I remember distantly trying to look over their champion pool, I feel like Varus is a special of theirs. I'm not hugely confident in that call, but yeah, no, I'm really confused now, Initialize. I'm really not quite sure what's going on here. That the Varus? Why are we playing Varus? Yes, it's his second most played champion. Hollow has played 41 games of Varus across his career. The only champion that beats that, Xayah. So on the enemy team for Gango at 42
There
games.
it is. That is Cog picking up Tristana top.
This has to be a new one from Cog. Cog has been playing so many different champions since he's moved over to V3, and this is his first game on this Tristana as well. Okay. Interesting, to say the least.
Yeah, it's an odd one. I think it's fair to say that wasn't necessarily what we were expecting, but it does play to Cog having been, particularly earlier midway through the split, a really, really strong top laner, playing some interesting picks. I mean, this guy was playing Ivern top, he's played the Jace top, and Tristana does have a lot of jumps. She's got some disengage. You can understand that if you just get alone time with the plates and get solo lane experience, she's pretty damn terrifying. See how it works out. I think Renekton to his ear probably sucks for Renekton, I would imagine, because of the range discrepancy, but Ace has been happy to pick that matchup before, and this is what we're left up with.
Okay, but what does happen for Ace now is he is against Ramune on this Azir. If Azir does get into melee range and they're pushed into the lane, they do have Mugen on this Nidalee, so you do get Renekton Nidalee. So that there is that combo now over there. You don't have that in top. So Cog has to solo win top lane on this Tristana pick. Like, there is not really an option for a gank against a Gnar when you're playing Tristana. You have no setup for your jungler unless some crazy thing, and you have no CC between you and Mugen. It is just got to be burst damage and catch Paz out. Assuming there's half decent vision, it should be pretty hard. So I feel like Cog might be very oppressive in this lane. But unless he really gets unlocked, I don't know how good V3's team fighting is. I wish it's the kind of thing where you wish Seraphine was picked, but you couldn't.
Well, yeah, I mean, they have got the 1-3-1 options here, because eventually Varus and Tahm Kench just sit in mid and then teleport to wherever you need them. And then you've got Varus and Nidalee for some sort of poke. Tristana shoves one lane, Renekton shoves the other. And hopefully it all works out just fine. But I'm looking over at Sengoku's comp and saying it is a lot easier to manage as far as what's the word I'm looking for here? In terms of just team comp execution, right? It's front to back, it's 5v5, you've got a strong lane for Gango, all of that seems pretty good. Na's good enough to the weak side, whereas V3 have tried to pull out some off-the-wall counter picks here, like get that Tristana into the Nas, so you've got a range matchup there, and try and turn Na's, squishy HP bar into a weakness, and all of this kind of jazz, but it is still pretty bold, and I'll be interested to see exactly how it all works out on the Rift. Speaking of which, looks like we're heading onto it in just a moment. Here we are, onto the Rift. It'll be Cog up towards this top side of the map with, of course, Muujin's Nidalee.
Oh, he's already lost. He's
What?
not got Merc skin on. You have to... Yeah, Cog.
Are you kidding me? Dragon Trader Tristana, man. It's so good.
No, but in competitive play, the team that always uses Merc Tristana wins. When you use Dragon Slayer, you lose.
Really?
It's an observation I've made. Yeah, it's something I've noticed. Whenever I see Dragon Tamer, I'm like, that's the skin I use. You're going to lose now. And then whenever I see a Merc one, I'm like, oh, I'm scared of that Tristana.
Is this just you sort of projecting your own solo queue fears and insecurities onto pro players, Lexi?
I have no idea what you're talking about there. Get out my head.
All right. So, something I do want to point out here is that Hollow has got himself a Comet Summoner spell, which implies this is poke Varus, not on hit Varus.
Okay, well, half of my points around what I was expecting the build to go is completely wrong now.
I mean, it could still be. It's just normally with on hit Varus, it's generally been lethal tempo in the past. I mean, at least early on, the Comet might make some sense, but who knows?
I agree with Blitzcrank's on. AI, who will win? Yes, I agree Sengoku will probably win this one, not only because of my prediction, but also just because of these comps. Because V3 is playing a composition that is so unorthodox. It's got front to back, but it doesn't really want to be front to back. It kind of wants to be poke. Team fighting is always going to be awkward with this one, so you really want to force the 1-3-1. The problem is you're against Nazir, who will just scale. You're against Desire, who will just scale. And you've got a Renekton, who will just fall off like an absolute ton of bricks. You didn't pick something like a Scion or a Set, who is still normally useful into the mid to late game. But I guess the whole idea is prevent Paz from being in this game.
I mean, yeah, you can see the poke that Paz is having to endure here, and this is the kind of deal that Na is a fairly good blind pick, can play weak side, can be a lane bully, but if you get the right matchups, it's quite easy to bully Na in turn, and you can see Cog started the explosive charge, just puts that on top and says, yeah, I just win the damage trade from range to begin with at level 1, then he gets rocket jump level 2 and just zones Paz off the wave best he can, gets the early shove. Problem is in mid lane, Ramane can do exactly the same to Ace because it's range versus melee, and poor old Ace is just a crocodile right now. He does, of course, have a lot of inbuilt sustain, no mana to worry about, can just cull the meek the wave and feel pretty happy about it. But we're going to have to see how well V3 manage this perma-shoving solo lane Tristana in the top lane, and whether they can make the most of it. I'll kind of add this one as well as actually flash in for that ruthless Predator. Ramane doesn't get the shuffle off in the way he wants to. First blood comes the way of V3 in mid lane. And it's kind of been that way all damn split. Ace has been involved in like half of the first bloods for this squad, and you can see exactly why the synergy comes through. And for all the Ace was getting shoved in early, he still got the Nidalee to back him up with that brutal combo.
We were describing this as a fact that we want to see more of Muujin. We want to see more agency and proactivity coming from them, and that's some of it. We want to see more of that. It was a really clean first blood. Ramane was super far up, hadn't got used anything, and now had to use his teleportation. He did have flash, but just, I guess, respected the damage. He was incredibly low on mana, so there's a good chance, even with a flash, he wouldn't have been able to get out with a dash as well. Look at Muujin's pathing here. Goes super deep, goes on purposely around using the ward, and then Ace just commits to it with this. They prevent the shuffle from happening. Ace uses his body, and yeah, the flash could come out, but you're flashing on top of Ace at that point. So yeah, doesn't get you anywhere. First blood over to V3, and mild gold recalling. What is it? It's like what's it called when you get gold from the government and you're kind of for getting like tax back? Like, there's a certain phrase for it.
tax rebate, I believe is the
Yes,
word that is.
he got his rebate for being in the bad matchup.
There we go. That's the one. Oh boy, I was like, I love the fact you call it gold back from the government as well. like League of Legends is suffusing
Give
your
me my
life.
gold.
Oh boy. Well, there we go. Ace steps forward, gets himself a little Ruthless Predator again, and steps back under tower, but the shove is still fairly present there, and it is, apart from that first blood, a relatively even game. Xayah and Leona have the shove in bot for now. We've seen Tristana has largely been shoving in top, but also just teleported back into lane, so we'll take a second before she starts perma-shoving again, and Ace just sending up on top of Ramone, who's getting absolutely battered when Ace can get on top of him, but is still alive for now, and Mugen isn't around to throw a spear quite yet.
No, Ramone will be able to kind of push it off, so it's going to be really awkward for Mugen unless they want to go for a deep dive. What is happening and transpiring while this is happening is Crash is securing at least first dragon. That's Infernal, so that's a good place to start. And while the gold at the moment is slightly favored over on the V3 side, a lot of that is over in this top side. It's actually nowhere near on mid and jungle. What a spear, though, Mugen. You didn't have very good vision on him there.
A nice read, gets the chunk, and of course, because they know Crash is on the bot side, Mugen comes up to make sure Paz can't get towards the wave as easily, and Cog is left to take plates, because that's what a Tristana loves to do. Crash is now turned up, so it is a 2 versus 2, but I don't know whether Sengoku really want to get in and start this one. Cog gets himself a second plate nice and early, and he's feeling pretty happy about this trade for Dragon.
What I really like is the idea that he's going to try and take it to a place. He's going to get this turret down to a point where Rift Herald can actually burst it down. He might be able to just take it down faster because he is a Tristana, but the idea that you can get it down to a turret plating size and then start roaming around the game the moment you get unlocked from your lane, because if you're not going to be able to find much more outside of just bullying the Snar, what are you going to get? But Mugen, you might be in a little bit of no man's land if NT has something to say about it.
Just trying to see whether he can stay alive. Kango just looking for the Q poke there to see whether he can get a hold of the Scuttle Crab. Couldn't quite do it. And we sit back with a notable lead for V3, but it's not game-breaking by any means. And for all the draft is a little unusual, a little unorthodox. You see how it's supposed to play out when Cog can start hopping forward onto Paz for free, and if he gets to shove up here, much like a Caitlyn lane, without anybody coming up to interrupt, that is one very happy Tristana.
Well, and this is the place where we look at it and go, okay, what's the next objective? Well, Rift Herald, as I already mentioned, is coming up in 30 seconds. The Dragon will be up in about 3 to 4 minutes at the moment. We don't have our timer on screen, so it's definitely always safe to say it's above the 2-minute mark until we see it. This Poke Varus is looking all right. It's not looking crazy good, but hey, it's putting out okay damage, and he's farming effectively versus one of the meta picks at the moment.
Okay, well, NT does take a big chunk. Crash hops over the wall, but I don't think they want to go forwards because the turnaround would be fairly hefty. Reiner throws the Crab Rave, throws down another control ward, and Crash backs out going, well, that didn't work out, now did it? And you've got to remember, what with the old school counters to things like Xayah, it was like, well, can you outrange her? Things like Caitlyn, things like Varus, and also how did you used to do Azir way back in like season 6? How did you used to counter him? Kuro for the Rocks Tigers was a big Varus mid player, which again we saw last spring, right? Remember the likes of Ninja and Arya were pulling that one out. Hollow has decided to bring it back here, best we can tell. Yep, you can see the Serrated Dirks in inventory, you can see the Tears in inventory. That's all saying poke Varus straight off the bat, and you've got two characters you would normally look to punish with a poke Varus, so makes sense even if the pick isn't as strong as it once was.
Oh, absolutely. It'll be interesting to see the direction that they do go for the build, because Poke Varus was always built one way, and I've not actually seen a Poke Varus on the new item patch. Like that's honestly something for me. I've no idea how I would even start theory crafting a Poke Varus build at the moment, because
think about how Jace
season
builds,
11.
I guess. Because, of course, like, of the way Mana Mune works at the minute, it also impacts abilities. So I think that's why he's going towards the tier early. So I imagine it would be something like maybe maybe Eclipse plus Mana Mune, or I suppose something like a Duskblade would still work. But I imagine Eclipse would be potentially a little bit more dueling potential if you did end up in a 1v1. But We'll have to see whether it even goes towards a mythic.
Yeah, I mean, that's such a true thing to say, because when we watch Ezreal's at the moment, they don't even do it.
Well,
Why
that's
would you
exactly why
even need
I'm a
to?
bit curious. I mean, Enti's going to find himself having to flash to avoid the chains of corruption. Does so, but that's not what you want to see from your Leona. And V3, get that top tower solo for Cog in the top side. Who needs a Herald when you have a Tristana? And the gold lead is pretty significant for V3 right now. This early game is going exactly to plan.
But it's all in this top side. It's all on Cog at the moment. I honestly, I feel like if you remove the gold lead that's currently in this game for the side of V3, if you just remove Cog's gold lead over Paz, I think it all dissipates immediately. So I'm very concerned for V3. They need to keep making sure.
The moment you say it, everywhere else is even, and then there's Cog.
And it's exactly as I predicted. It's like I somehow pay attention to these games sometimes when I'm talking over them.
Just
but
occasionally.
Hey,
Just occasionally.
just sometimes. But it's like, okay, so Cog has like a 2k gold lead. Cool. What can you really do with that? It's on a Tristana, so you just want to make sure she gets funneled probably a bit more gold. You want to really index onto her, because if you put more gold onto her, you can get her into a 2-item power spike far before anybody else in this game will even be near it, which then you can allow her to single-handedly just start walking around with Ace on this Renekton and just setting up kills over and over and over again, just become like a power-hungry couple, just taking over the TV nation. It's just on Summoner's Rift this time.
Yeah, well, V3 do exactly that. They summon the Herald in mid. They have a Tristana, which means you can take down towers even faster, trying to get towards that 2-3 plate mark. 4 plates in mid off that Herald. That is 9 plates secured by V3 right now. This early game, as we said, going pretty well for this squad. And yes, it's all going on to Cog, but hyper farming a solo lane Tristana doesn't sound like a bad option to me.
No, it really does sound like a perfectly good one, especially for the side of V3. They're able to now get priority all around the map to their absolute heart's content. And remember, Cog did go teleport. He planned for the idea that he might have to do some weird join one lane, push really, really hard, and then immediately transition over to another spot because, hey, I'm under a turret. It's really awkward to try and dive a Tristana because she's so effective at clearing a wave, meaning when you dive a Tristana, you have to assume half the time the wave is already gone because of her passive. The wave just disappears so quickly. And this can be normally in the opposite side for a Tristana as well. You can't freeze with Tristana just because of how the champion works. And she's one of the few. You just can't, because of lane manipulation. You have to kind of set it up so minions aren't near one another when they're dying, and it's like
hard. Yeah, it's like it's so hard to do if even practically feasible. And you know, Cog's that's not all that much about fighting. This game is all about saying, just put me in front of a tower and leave me alone with it for 10 seconds and I'll get rid of it for you. He is a full demolitionist split push champion this game, and thus far, it has worked out very, very well. He is the highest level. He has the most gold. He's got a Gale Force at 12, nearly 13 minutes. And all things coming up Cog right now.
I'm now wondering, is this game going to be our least kills death combat game ever in the LJL? Because 1 kill in 13 minutes. If we hit the 15-minute mark, I don't think Spring has had a more passive game so far. I think there's been at least a few kills normally by the 15-minute mark, even in slow games.
I'm trying to think. Where Hawks TFM still saw Hawks getting some kills early on? So yeah, you might well be right. I'd have to look over the stats for it, of course, but don't know for sure. Either way, it's been a quiet early game in terms of kills, even if V3 have been trying to wage structure destruction. They've certainly managed that fairly well in top and mid. As we said, 9 plates. Those plates falling off in about 10 seconds, so unlikely to claim any more unless someone rams their head very quickly into the mid lane tier 1, and that's unlikely to happen. So 9 plates to 1. It's a fairly good trade for V3 fans.
Oh, absolutely. It's completely set them up for a gold lead. I think without without the turret plating, they wouldn't have much of any of a gold lead.
That's so annoying. Just comes in, interrupts the back and goes, yeah, no, that's not happening. Yep, there you go. 9 plates to 1, and that 1 turret plate was not picked up, so just 1,440 gold that is unanswered by Sengoku Gaming.
He's still doing it. He's still annoying Ramune, who just wants to go back and buy. I'm perfectly sure Ramune has a completed item now and can't go back and get it. Ramune just wants to go back and get Leandries or a part of his Leandries, and Mugen is denying him, which is always, NT, you can't tank many of those without your W procced. Yikes.
Yeah, no Eclipse, no life. Tristana with those items definitely stings. It turns out tier 1 in mid lane falls and the gold lead continues to extend for V3. They are now up nearly 3,000 gold, and we have our answer. It is Duskblade that was the option for Hollow's poke Varus. Gordrink has been built for Ace, and V3 are hitting the shops, hitting the supermarkets, have come back with a glut of very nice first item purchases.
Interesting. I was not expecting Duskblades. That's more poke now transitioning into lethality, Varus?
So it'll be lethality for the poke, and Duskblade also gives you ability haste as the mythic passive as well, of course. So, right. So the point is that basically Hollow just gets to throw out even more arrows, which makes sense now in retrospect, thinking, well, of course, Ezreal, when he's going for a mythic, tends to go towards Duskblade when he does so. So kind of now makes more sense. Sengoku trying to get a little bit of alone time for Gango on that bot lane tier 1, but thus far haven't managed it. Crash nearly gets pushed over the wall by the Blast Clone, but doesn't. And once again, we're left with a little bit of a quiet early game, but maybe we'll be seeing some action, Lexi, in about 40-odd seconds, because the third Drake will be spawning, namely a Cloud one, and we'll see whether either team wants to set up to fight for that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Cloud is definitely something that one of these teams would prefer over the other. More specifically, V3's composition would prefer it. It is a little bit awkward because of specifically Mugen that they are on this rift, but hey, it's part of it. Coco, you're getting looked and ran down, but Undertow did make contact, but Tristana still has a jump and a flash and everything else. So yeah, let him go. Let him go. We just got him off the way for you, mate.
Pretty much, and you can see Ace being left alone with this tier 1 in bot lane, and V3 are still not all that interested about finding fights. They'd rather just poke you so low you can't be around and take all your structures instead, and that has worked out just fine for them right now. Bringing this turret down will probably extend their gold lead more to around that 4,000 mark, I'd imagine. Yep, there it goes, 4.3 by the looks of it, which is a very significant gold lead at 17 minutes. I'll tell you why I went towards 15. I was thinking, I was doing like 24-hour clock thinking of 17 as 5, and managed to combine the two in some weird way in my head. Sengoku do at least trade back in the top lane, so they bring that gold lead back down a little, and that's their first turn of the game, but I need to see Sengoku start forcing some fights, or this Tristana, this Renekton getting to split push freely in a 1-3-1 setting is going to get really hard for Sengoku to start breaking apart.
I think this is going to be just the kind of game that we're set up to play now. The fact that we're about 18 minutes into this game and only one kill has happened, only three turrets. Like, this is not quick. We've seen games in the LJL be close to the 23-minute mark if you're DFM, 24, 25. And the V3 and Sengoku have had 28-minute games. Like, this doesn't feel like a game that's ending in 10 minutes unless something like this works out.
All right, so Cog is teleported in, but he's looking to turn it around. In goes Ace to try and find the pick, but that hasn't worked out as well as they would like. Ace is kind of caught between the wall. The Emperor's Divide comes through. Teleport burned, but everybody survives. Teleport for teleport. Flash out from Ace, but that's about all she wrote. Slight summoner advantage to Sengoku, but nothing more to be said from it.
I feel like Kenny right now, when everything fell apart and you just have that, and then you just start crying, and it's like, I thought something big, important was going to happen, and then everyone just reset and no one got a lead, and they all backed off to just play safe. I don't want you to play safe. I want you to get kills. I want some excitement. I don't want all this play. Oh,
Gango could be in a spot of bother. Ace coming forward. Of course, he does not have flash. Does not have dominance. I apologize. The cooldown timer caught me a little off guard there. Gango trying to back away, but will do so, and that means both teleports down for V3, where they didn't get anything for all that these guys can siege like no other team with their options. Great front line, loads of poke, lots of damage on the towers. they don't have the best ways of forcing fights.
All right, so we have the last few fights haven't worked for us, V3. All right, or initiation, everything else. Let's just force another objective, but let's not force the same objective we were already pressuring in the mid lane. Let's go for top. Yeah, you can feel where I am with that one. I think it makes 10 times more sense. Get this mid turret down. Maybe you can get a second hit onto the inhibitor one, because that means if Cog ever gets alone time in the mid lane for like 5 seconds, they can probably just remove that turret in the mid lane, open up the mid lane, and it really allows them to do that. Otherwise, commit at least to the top lane push, so at least it's an inhibitor turret open that's just sitting there defending the base. The fact that the turret gets low but isn't taken down means Cog or Ace will have to take some time into actually pushing down that turret. And both this top lanes are so long now because both both tier 1 turrets have already gone down. So no one really wants to stay in the lanes for a super long amount of time. I wonder if something like V3 are considering trying to take a mutual objective, but let's see how they go if they can get crashed this time.
Through. This is what you have for an engage. It's not fantastic, but it does force a Ragnarok, which could be quite critical. Crash without that CC immunity is significantly more able to be picked off and deleted. Still a minute and a half until Cloud Drake, though. I apologize. Confusing the Rift with the Drake, which is not particularly constructive. Either way, my point being that Ragnarok will likely be up by the time that spawns, so I don't think they'll have that much room to punish. And it's just highlighting again, we've got 1 kill in 20-odd minutes, because while V3 have managed to get good advantages for themselves, they can't really force a fight like the way they can force on towers.
I mean, this is partly due to the fact that you play something like a Tahm Kench, and then you don't have any other way of really engaging onto a fight. You have a Renekton, but Renekton wants to try and find a flank. You got Nidalee, but Nidalee's more of a setup and assist it. Your top laner is a Tristana.
I mean, your only throwaway CC is effectively Varus R, which is, you don't get me wrong, it's not bad pick. Don't get me wrong. It was picked alongside Ashe for the longest time purely because you have that ability to just start a fight with your R, which is great. But that's kind of it as far as really hard engage, unless you're getting a flash W from Renekton.
Yeah, and that's where V3 are. They've been looking for a few of these picks and can't find it. And I'm honestly wondering, is there something... Like, I highlighted when they picked this Nidalee, I was like, I would have liked to see something like a Lilia. At least Lilia gives you the option with the bowling balls. You can just throw the bowling balls and hope to find something. Ramune, though, and Muchin is landing these spears. So, like, I'm not discrediting it. I'm more just saying that maybe a different champion might be benefiting the side of V3, not that Muchin is playing this pick particularly badly.
All right, well, V3 is saying, well, we don't necessarily need to force fights if you're going to gather around an objective, and if you leave our Tristana alone with turrets, then it's all fine for us. Sengoku want the team fight. V3 are less bothered by it. V3 do get themselves that... well, I've got 2 Drakes already. Sengoku get a second for themselves, but they're a long way off Soul Point, so they're not like... For Sengoku, it's like, well, we'd like to get V3 into a team fight if we can, and how are we going to be able to manage that if V3 are just split pushing all day? Their option might be to just say, well, we've got a Tristana, we're going to start at Baron instead, and then there was the recall, so Sengoku are going to try and come over here, but they might be a little too late. Down to half HP already. Crash is going to be over the back of the wall, and Cog and the rest of V3 are going to back away.
Oh, just when I thought a big team fight was going to happen, no, got myself all excited. Another thing worth of note is while that dragon was getting taken down, for whatever reason, Cog just decided to almost go into the mid lane and then rotate back around, and then ended up not doing anything. I think if there was more decisive play out of Cog there, or whoever was making the shot call to pull for Cog to come down, if they just went for the top turret, I think they could have got the outer inhibitor turret and in top lane, which would allow them to play around these bot lane dragons a lot more, because you're forcing at least one member to go to this top lane and kind of deal with maybe losing the inhibitor, maybe getting pulled around the map a bit more, and V3 controlling the tempo. Hey, if you can't get a 5v5 team fight in a way that you want it, force them into a 4v5, and then you'll have an advantage with that Varus ultimate, always landing onto somebody. And then from there, you just have to play catch up and pick up.
Either way, Blitzcrank gonna give Cog and crew a 64% chance to win. And if they can split push their way to victory, they've certainly got the team comp for it. But that assumes, of course, that they don't need to force a fight. If they can continue to just split the map, draw Sengoku around about, and use their Tristana, who is monstrously strong, do not get me wrong, then they've definitely got all the tools they need to win it. But that gold lead, which was kind of uncontested for a while, has been evened up a little bit because, of course, Sengoku picked up a couple turrets of their own, even if V3 still leading that score. And Sengoku quietly scaling away. They've got an Azir, they've got a Xayah. They're pretty happy to wait and play for late and look for the big team fights, which have been so important in the current meta. It's V3 who have got a harder to execute team comp. Of course, if they can play the split push, the 1-3-1 with the Tristana and Renekton in the side lanes well, then it's a good look for this squad. And, 25 minutes into the game, it's worked thus far. Depends whether it'll be enough. Ramune throws out the Emperor's Divide and has to flash away from the Abyssal Voyage.
No, I think that's perfectly fine. I mean, Ramune is just looking to try and build. He's got this Leandries already, so now he's just looking to get his Nash's Tooth done, and that's when he'll actually more come online. He's just got it, so he's actually really kind of turned on now. Like, he's hit that 2-item spike. That's what Aziz really need to get to. The Ragnarok is popped there, but another player on the tier. Oh, Sengoku, you looking for something? No? Yes? All right, well, I'm just going to make my point and then say my piece. Gale Force and Essence Reaver on Gango.
Always a risk. Crash takes a lot of damage, but does have a Gore Drinker, so gets his way back up. Important to note, it is a Gore Drinker and not a Stride Breaker. Not going towards the new tech, going towards the nerfed old tech. Still seems to be working out just fine. Second items in for Gango and Ramune is good news for them. And all the while, you can see Mujin has started up the Baron, and V3 are going to try and draw Sengoku back over here, rather than necessarily look for the split push options they had been earlier.
It was definitely an option open to them. They just weren't able to go for anything. And we see the common reset, which is how this game's gone. And now I'm confident in saying this is the least kill game in the LJL
for sure.
now.
It definitely is. Like, there's no way we've had a game, aside from this one, which has gone in 26 minutes with only the one kill. Right now, Sengoku would love to force a fight. They would love to find a way to get V3 in the same space, be able to get on top of them. That hasn't really been an option for them thus far. They are down nearly 4,000 gold. They have got a Tristana in a side lane, which they are struggling to deal with, and answering with one of their members has ended up with an Abyssal Voyage on top of them, and they've managed to escape getting picked off, of course, because V3, as we said, don't have the best hard engage tools, but it's made responding to the split push for Sengoku really frustrating.
Oh, absolutely. And Sengoku don't really have any great engage tools themselves. Like, they've got some good, decent ultimates, but the problem is they need to get close to the members of V3. And V3 have multiple dashes away. Nidalee has a jump. She can jump over walls. Tristana, jump. Tom Kench can just eat up the Varus and get him out of there and slice and dice. And, like, the V3 has so much disengage or re-engage depending on how they need to see it. It's going to be so difficult for Sengoku to find a fight, but Paz is turning Mega and he might be looking for it soon.
Paz has got Mega just as the dragon is spawned. That's what we call great timing. And V3 are around looking to try and contest for this soul point. Drake Crash takes a lot more poke, and that has always been the issue versus a squad like this. It is all well and good not being able to force a fight, but if before you force the fight, you've taken half your HP bars in poke trades, it's not been a good trade, and they have to back away. No kills, but the victory is still V3's purely because of HP bars.
Yep. Couldn't said it better myself. The side of Sengoku got low. So now, at least in 5 minutes, Sengoku are going to be their hand will be forced, unless they decide to not go for the Cloud Drake. But the speed boost is going to make it even more difficult for the side of Sengoku to get on top of the members of V3. So it kind of just links into this point I was setting up earlier, where V3 can just disengage and kind of kite.
Oh, no. That tower's just gone. Cog, I was about to say, has just picked up his third item. Infinity Edge is level 16, so his draw a bead passive is damn strong right now. And that tower in top lane was there for 5 seconds, and then Cog was alone with it.
Yeah, Cog has the ability to down all of the turrets, but Ramune, honestly, now with that Nash's Tooth coming out, and when he potentially builds towards Azonia's, I imagine. Oh, Reiner
getting caught out a little bit here. There's teleports coming, but that's going to be Ace in the middle of everybody trying to flash in to get on Crash and can't quite make it. That is flash, teleport, and flash exhaust down for Ace and Reiner, respectively. Sengoku finally forced some summon out of Sengoku Gaming, but still can't find a kill. In goes Cog onto Paz in the backline, but can't quite get what he was looking for. Gets shunted away, and that'll be the end of that. I think he had to Gale Force out of that one, and V3 don't find much for themselves either, and that's been a problem for both these teams this game. Neither of them can really make a fight stick.
Both of these teams are looking for their shot to get in that third place spot, but until they get that shot, they won't have that opportunity. Sorry, I've got the most recent South Park special on in my head at the moment, and it's all about multiple people wanting their shot, but you can imagine which shot they're actually talking about.
Oh, boy. All right, well, there we go.
Well, what else is happening in this game?
Fair enough. I was never really a big South Park fan. I never watched loads of it. I think when I was a kid, I was definitely more of a Family Guy guy.
It was definitely the split. You either did one or the other, really.
Yeah, and these days I just don't find. I mean, I just don't find it as funny as I used to. Like looking back and going, it's just not my humor really that much anymore. I'm much more in there. What kind of things do I find? I like my Brooklyn.
Are you more of an intellect?
Brooklyn Nine-Nine's always good. Blackadder is.
I do
is
like
genius.
Black. Do you like Brooklyn?
I don't watch that much comedy stuff anymore, really. Probably says a lot.
Fair enough. The fact is, I used to watch a lot of like QI and stuff, more like different. But like, I don't have a TV now, so I don't really watch much of that anymore.
Or bust. Yeah, exactly. In comes Paz. They're looking to get to the mid. They can't quite find the engagement, but Hollow still gets caught under tower as in flashes everybody else. They get the pick onto the AD carry when the Tahm Kench wasn't around to save him, and flash away under turret, still not enough. And finally, Sengoku Gaming get a kill while we're distracted talking about TV. And instead, with the man advantage, Sengoku will get their chance to start something in this game, and it will be Baron. Ace is here with dominance. Baron is down low. Mujin got inches away from stealing it, but can't quite make it. And now Sengoku Gaming get out with the Baron and a kill. And Hollow will be kicking himself, thinking he was safe there.
Disappointing moment, but I almost feel with the amount that Paz used, and even with the ultimate failing, he just turned around and immediately went for it. I have a sneaking suspicion that Paz, a flip just switched in him, and he was just like, we gotta go for something. I can't deal with this game going on anymore. This is unacceptable against my former team. Goes in, misses it, and then just keeps tanking it. Gango's like, well, I guess it's free, and we can just force this down. It's only a turret, and you are Mega Gnar, so we can just go for it. Because of that, they're able to get the Baron, and now let's see if against the infinite clear that V3 have, can you get through a Baron buff?
Poke comps are so obnoxious if they have Baron buff. They are also horrific if you don't have Baron buff. And they have gone for double poke plus Tristana split push. This is the worst nightmare for V3 right now. In comes Paz at the backline looking for more. That was what you're looking for as an engage. Hollow gets taken down again. Still had no flash. Tahm Kench is dead as well. And you were looking for action, Lexi. This will do exactly that. Cog forced to flash away. And the engage just won't be stopped. Mid lane tier 1 falls. Mid lane tier 2 falls. 2 are dead for V3, and the siege will continue.
They can just keep forcing this. They're
going to keep going.
Ace doesn't go in front.
That's Cog dead, and they're going to keep going in. They get the shove onto Ace. It's just Mujin left, and in a matter of moments, in the blink of an eye, from V3 being solely in control of this game to a Baron into an Ace, V3 lose the game, and Sengoku seize their moment. They will be moving to third.
What a performance from the side of V3. They figured it out, and that's how you get it.
Yeah, it was close. V3 had such a good game for 25 minutes. They had the split push. They had the gold. They just couldn't make it stick when Hollow got picked up once. It was just lights out.
But once wasn't in this game initialized. But I understand. Oh, absolutely. What a performance from the side of V3 Esports here. They just had the lead and they couldn't do it. This is something that we were very worried could be a sign of things to come from V3 Esports, but Sengoku Gaming showed that they have the patience. That's what they needed this game, was just pure patience. You're playing something like an Olaf Gnar. You want to get in team fights early on. You don't want to wait around. You at least want something to happen. The fact that they had to wait almost 30 minutes to get their first kill Sengoku showed that they were more than tenacious enough to find their way through and to get that victory.
Absolutely. We're going to go on a quick break here, guys, but we come back, we'll have a little bit more of an analyst test to break this one down. So stick around and we'll be right back.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the desk. Mas1 here. Initialize over there or over there. I'm not quite sure, but it doesn't
You
matter
are... Oh,
because...
gosh. The other way. That way. That's the one. There we go. We got it.
What a performance that game was. Least deaths, I believe, in a game in the LJL in the spring split. It is also...
Probably.
I think the most kills, least kills before this was 8. So I
This
think
was
we now
6, so
beat
yeah.
that.
Or 7, yeah.
Yeah, 7. So, weird game. And Initialize, coming over to you. I wasn't expecting a game like this. Even a slower paced game, that's not what I expected. I thought it would be Sengoku controlling the pace, not V3.
I mean, it was effectively 1 kill in 30 minutes, and then Sengoku just basically had a massacre at the end of it to turn it around. But yeah, it was basically 1 kills in 20 minutes, and part of that was basically what V3 had drafted. It wasn't really about engage. It wasn't about finding team fights. It's basically saying we're going to have a Renekton in one lane. We're going to have a Tristana, which we have put every bit of gold we can into in the early game. And we've got poke. So you've got split push with the point being that actually if we get to objectives before you, we just poke you out and you can't come and fight us because none of your health bars are there. And for 30 minutes... it worked out pretty well. They got 9 unanswered turret plates early on in the game. Sengoku didn't even get a turret plate gold early on. They got 1 plate, but nobody picked up the gold for it. Tristana was at 3 items early. You saw what happened to that bot lane tier 2. She was left alone with it for 5 seconds. And it just didn't feel like Sengoku could force an engage very easily because they were trying to, like, who do you force on? Tristana, who can jump away, Renekton, who's tanky and got all his ways out. And then there's like a Tahm Kench in mid lane who just devours the Varus if we try to dive him. Like, felt like they were kind of shy on options.
I would definitely agree with that. They felt so kind of mixed and pulled apart, but the fact that this game went on and was always on a knife edge. It felt like it was on a knife edge, and we saw those few engages coming from the side of V3 throughout the mid to early points when they really had a decisive lead. Their comp was just further ahead. And I'm feeling around that dragon fight specifically because it felt like V3 kind of went for a lot of it, missed out on getting any form of kills there. And what this game is so different if V3 get any form of momentum going on their side.
Yeah, I mean, that's just it. Because again, this is the deal with drafting a comp like this. Is like, it didn't come with very easy engage. Like, you were effectively looking for an Abyssal Voyage flank, which they did a couple times, and they forced summoners, but that's all they could really force. And you were kind of relying on Varus to land an ultimate, but you land the ultimate, and it's like, okay, well, this Olaf Ragnaroks. And then he runs away and can't fight for the objective, so that's great, you get the objective. So you get these things, but you're not getting the fights, and that was always a bit of an issue with... That was always the weakness to this draft. Like, it could poke like nobody else when you've got a Varus who's building poke and a Nidalee, and then there's the Tristana as well, who's just pumping out ridiculous amounts of damage. Like, that was all well and good, but they could never really force a fight to get Baron themselves. They tried to sneak it, and of course, you know, with a Tristana without items, you can rush it, don't get me wrong, but it was difficult for them to get a Baron easily. And that was probably the thing that was hurting them a little bit, because then you were basically relying on, can we keep Cog safe enough that he can take the turrets even without Baron, which he could do, but it was harder.
It was significantly harder, and the fact that the side of Sengoku Gaming they didn't get themselves into spots where they got caught out, right? Like, that's the other thing for Sengoku. They understood this is the game. They didn't get impatient, and arguably the moment that it looked like they were getting impatient, it was all around when they killed that kill on Hollow, and the game was actually going to become over in the next 3 minutes. If you had imagine knowing that initialized from that point, the moment Hollow dies, the game's over. The game's actually just
it was quite a remarkable kind of given an inch taking a mile, or take your whole damn arm even. Like, that was really well played from Sengoku to force an engage, because they were being strangled out of that game. They were down 4,000 gold. Cog was untouchable in a 1v1. And it was looking like even Hollow was like, he's on a poke Varus, he can just clear waves from miles away. He should be really hard to get on top of him. But they note that Reiner isn't next to Tahm Kench. Gango Gale forces forward. Paz jumps in with the Mega Knight. He misses the Mega Knight because it flashes out, but they still keep chasing because it's still 2 versus 1, and it's late enough into the game that they can just keep firing at him. He dies, and then in the 5 versus 4, they get Baron. And after that, like, it's that incredible mid lane push, Lexi. Like, they find picks, like, Paz hops over the wall to shove people into the wall to get 2 more kills. They get the mid lane tier 1, they get the mid lane tier 2, they hop over into the base, get even more, get the ace, and it's basically all 3 turrets in mid and the Nexus in one push. And that is very impressive, just taking the advantage while you have it, because, if they've been allowed to survive that Baron push, they've still got to deal with this Tristana in a side lane and the rest of it, and how easy then would it be to get another pick onto this Varus? So it's really,
I think that's a really good point. Sengoku knew they had this like 2-minute window where they can get the push and get a win maybe, but if they don't have this Baron buff, it's going to be incredibly difficult for them to find it, because they know the Dragon Soul is going to be coming up. So V3 potentially, if they secure that, will have the movement speed. Yeah, sure, the ultimate cooldown thing is nice, but V3 aren't particularly alarmed about that. They just want the movement speed more than anything coming out so they can go faster around the map. Though they're not able to find it, Sengoku Gaming win this one. And initialize with this, we also get to know the information on whom will be playing who in this one. And it's pretty big. I brought this up as a thing on our most recent episode of the podcast. If you haven't watched that, go listen to it. Sengoku Gaming versus Crest Gaming Act this Sunday. And that means V3 Esports will be facing off against the Fukuoka SoftBank Hawks Gaming next Saturday. Sengoku versus Crest Gaming Act is always historically been Crest Gaming Act favored. Like a 3-11 in the history books.
Yeah, and I'll put it out there. It wasn't necessarily what we were expecting on the podcast, for example. We were expecting the winner to just pick up Hawks because they seemed weaker. And that implies to me probably two things. One, that the Hawks are better than we've seen on stage, or at least teams think they are. And honestly, we've seen some good laning and stuff from them. That's not been their problem. It's been mid-game vision and control and the likes of it, which I've harped on about enough beforehand. And I think it also, so I think that's probably one thing, and I think it also implies that Sengoku think that they can punish CGA. They've got a good matchup into CGA, and I think part of that will be that Gango and NT will really be feeling confident going into Milan and Alchemy, who are a little bit newer to the stage. Well, Milan is in his rookie year and has struggled a bit more in lanes. So I wonder what combination of those two has led to Sengoku picking this.
I also maybe wonder if the fact of Sengoku Gaming, if they're just like 0-2, it's the only team that beat Sengoku and they never got a win over them. Everybody else, Sengoku was at least able to get a 1-on-1 score against. I wonder if there's maybe this monkey on the player's back, so they just kind of want to get rid of it. The other thing, which would make less sense, but maybe they want to see more games out of the Hawks in V3 for scouting reasons. They're like, we'll take the, quote, harder match for us here because we're far more interested in making it through to round 3, meaning we're going to have to get through round 2, which means let's get a hard match done out of the way here. Let's get this match over. We have the more experience and everything else, like you already stated. Let's beat Crest Gaming Act. It might be a full 5-game series, but let's beat them, especially when they don't have time to prepare because they didn't know who they were going to be facing, but we prepared on the idea that we were going to win, play against Crest Gaming Act, meaning we'll get to beat V3 or Sengoku or the Fukuoka SoftBank Hawks in more decisive fashion going into round 2. Who knows, really, Initialize? We won't have a long amount of time to talk before that match. So who are you leaning already on in this post-game lobby?
I think Sengoku and V3 should have the edge in both their matchups from what we've seen today. Yes, V3 lost, but they still come out with a creative draft, which answered a lot of what Sengoku wanted to do. Sengoku could not find a team fight for their lives for the longest time at that game, which was super obnoxious, and they played pretty well for large portions of it. I think they'll still struggle against teams who can do what Sengoku did in this game to them, but
sure.
I think they should have a decent edge against the Hawks, who probably I don't think will have the same opportunities in the late game that Sengoku found for themselves. And then for Sengoku, I think that bot lane is going to be a problem for CGA.
I have to agree. I am worried for the bot lane of CGA, but hey, will the rookies keep returning and showing up, or will they sadly find something else in the pit of despair? We will have to wait and see, ladies and gentlemen. This Sunday is when we will be going live, 5 p.m. Japan time, meaning it's 9 a.m. UK time. So we'll be live covering all of the playoff matches. And for myself and Initialize, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you very soon.